All right, everybody, we're a day away from Christmas Eve. It's December 23rd. We now know a bunch of information about the Jets, the latest with the injury report heading into the Commanders game. Also, a historic quarterback change. We'll get into that. Plus, Garrett Wilson wants a stat really badly. And I'm going to mention some other stats you will not believe on Garrett frickin' Wilson heading into this Commanders game. He deserves your love, and we'll see if he can get to that statistical achievement he wants to get to. Let's roll this puppy, baby.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field Gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor Gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video program, also available in the audio-only form if you prefer. My name is Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. Let's get into it, baby. A couple of things here. First off, no Zach Wilson. We found that out yesterday from Robert Saleh, which means Trevor Siemian time for the New York Jets. And I wonder if you people know the trivia. You may have already seen it, okay? The trivia of when's the last time the New York Jets started 4 different quarterbacks in a single season? Last year they had 4 different quarterbacks play, but 4 different guys didn't start. Okay, we had, of course, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Chris Streveler made an appearance in the Thursday night football game. But when was the last time 4 different quarterbacks started in the same season? Well, Rich Cimini gave us that nugget. That is in 1989. For the New York Jets. 1989 is when the Jets last, trotted out 4 different quarterbacks, which is wild that the Jets are making this kind of history to make it happen. It's been 34 years for those counting at home. And here are those 4 quarterbacks from that season. Ken O'Brien, Pat Ryan, Kyle Mackey, and Tony Eason. Actually, 5 quarterbacks appeared during that season, but only 4 made the start. So unbelievable. And the Jets will be making this historic quarterback change for another time, which actually helps me spin into what I wanted to talk about with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was speaking in the locker room yesterday, and someone asked him about, 1,000 yards. Is that something you're looking for? And he was asked about other statistical stuff, and he said, I want 1,000 yards. Badly. And for those counting at home, Garrett Wilson currently has 79 catches for 882 yards with 3 tutties, which means he needs 118 yards to get to 1,000 again. That means with 3 games to go, he needs to average 39.3 receiving yards per game. Super doable. Absolutely. For Garrett. Hell, he could get 118 yards on Sunday versus the Commanders, who stink. They have the 32nd ranked defense. Jets, of course, have the 32nd ranked offense. But hey, I just got to say there, baby, Garrett Wilson could get it, and I hope he does. I hope he does. He already has the most yards and receptions of any Jets wide receiver in his first 2 years of a career, and he's got 3 games to pad those stats. Garrett Wilson has been spectacular, and I just feel bad for Garrett. Because here's another stat. I'm going to throw it up on the screen. I tweeted it out before, but there's a chance for this number to get even crazier potentially in these final 3 games. We'll see what happens. Because I'm going to be honest, I think it's unlikely that Zach Wilson, if he wasn't cleared for concussion protocol for this game, which was he was not, against Washington, how is he going to get cleared on a short week against the Cleveland Browns? It just seems unlikely, but possible. Robert Saleh did leave that door open. But here's this stat for Garrett Wilson, and it speaks to the quarterback change, okay? I'll throw it up on the screen. And this was back when Trevor Siemian entered the game, a couple weeks ago. I think that was the Falcons game, and it was the Falcons. It says it on here. Garrett Wilson in his first 2 seasons has played with 7 different quarterbacks. Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tim Boyle, Chris Strevler, Mike White, Joe Flacco. If somehow Brett Rippon gets somewhere involved, there is a chance for another quarterback to be added to that list, which, quite frankly, would just be bananas. So 8 potential quarterbacks to come. That would be kind of crazy. So God bless that man and happy holidays. Speaking of happy holidays, let's put the Garrett Wilson statistics aside and put on Ty gosh darn Butler of ESPN Radio. And I saw this freaking superstar is filling in as a ESPN radio host extravaganza during the holidays, giving up time with his precious family to spend with his loyal listeners and amazing followers. Ty Butler, good morning, pal.
Yeah, man. How's it going, bro? Yeah, we'll be doing that Christmas morning. Actually, doing morning drive, 6 to 9 a.m. DPHO in
Wow.
Rothenburg, allowing me to step in and try my best to fill in for them, fill their shoes. So 6 to 9 Christmas morning, and then the rest of the week we'll be hanging out afternoon drive on the K show, and talking a lot of things, mentioning Garrett Wilson just now. It's
Mhm.
amazing because he when you watch these network shows, like he
Mhm.
doesn't get talked about, for as good as he is, just because he
Yeah.
hasn't gotten a chance to display, just his greatness and his excellence. Because you're playing for a team that has the worst starting quarterback situation in all of football the last 2 years,
Yep.
and the multitude of options they've had under center. It's just I feel bad for him because he's such a talented guy. Like he's a game changer. And this year, I actually don't think he's performed well. And I found
Mhm.
myself being someone who was overly critical of him just because that expectation is so high. And we saw fumbles, we saw drops. But I mean, the amount of pressure he's under to make every single play, not having, that camaraderie, that chemistry, that cohesiveness at the quarterback position, and someone who is how many times have we watched him not get targeted in halves, which is just disgraceful. So, shout out to Garrett Wilson, man. I hope we finally be able to see his talent put on full display next season when Aaron Rodgers hopefully returns and can play for the entirety of the year.
Yeah, as I look at these numbers, here are the numbers for Garrett Wilson. In his first 2 seasons combined, he has 162 catches for just short of 2,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. His first season, which he won Rookie of the Year, was 1,100 yards, 83 catches, 4 tutties. He's going to beat his reception record from last year, if you want to call it a record. Yardage, we'll see what happens through the final games. He has a chance to beat that one, too. And, of course, he has a chance to beat touchdowns and top all those, of course, without the likes of Aaron Rodgers. What does a healthy Aaron Rodgers do, Ty Butler? For Garrett Wilson, like numbers wise? How crazy can we get?
It completely unlocks him as one of the best receivers in football. That he'll be able to have tangible evidence to support that claim, and we saw a glimpse of it in that Giants preseason game, right? On the what was it,
Sure.
the second drive of that game, where they hooked up for that fade route. It was Devontae
Smooth.
Adams like, and it had us all just giddy. It had us all like with the cheese doodle on our fingertips, just excited for the season, man. Because I don't know if you felt this way, and I'm just going back. Like I
Yeah.
remember watching that game, and I was overcome with so much anxiety because I'm like, man, if we get all the way here, Rodgers plays and he gets hurt in a
Yeah.
preseason game. Remember, it was actually, we've seen Mark Sanchez. It happened to Sanchez.
Snoopy Bowl.
uh,
That's exactly
Snoopy
right.
Bowl
Hmm.
against the Giants. I'm like, oh man, like this happening again would just be demoralizing. So we get through that first drive, they don't score. He plays the second drive, they march down the field, and I forget whoever the Giants defensive tackle was that's like chirping at Rodgers. I forget his name.
Jihad Ward.
Yeah,
He is the
Jahai
guy
Ward.
that was
Yeah,
giving him
yeah.
crap. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't even know who you are. So he throws the touchdown. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, anxiety suppressed. Like this is going to be a glimpse of what we see the entirety of the year. And Garrett Wilson was excited. And then you asked the question, what does it do for Garrett? Um, Not only does it allow him to statistically become one of the best receivers in football, do you remember? So we learned after that Bills game where Rodgers got hurt, what he said to Garrett Wilson in the locker
Oh
room. He's like, "I'm
yeah.
sorry, kid," because he felt like he let him down. He knew that this was going to be his time to finally shine. And he's like, yo, I'm sorry, man. Like it didn't get a chance to materialize. So now imagine, what the depressing feeling that was for Garrett Wilson, who last year had quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. To know, like I was about to have Aaron Rodgers, man. This guy I grew up watching. I idolized him. We saw all throughout training camp, the glistening of smiles that everyone had. Like it was just so contagious. So all of that to say, man, I'm excited to see that leap for Garrett, and I think this is going to be a learning season for him because he was frustrated. We saw him multiple times on the sideline, not happy. Saw it last year, and next year fully tapped in and engaged in year 3. His contract all of a sudden is going to be coming up at some point.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to that.
So, we've got 3 games left here, Ty Butler. The Jets have been eliminated for the playoffs. Hell, the Washington Commanders have been eliminated for the playoffs. And hell, I've been told on the Washington side that Ron Rivera has likely already been informed he's fired, but they just play it out for the respect factor of a guy who's been around forever. He's a legendary player, played on the 85 Bears defense, and has been a really good guy forever. So with nothing to play for from a playoff perspective, I guess pride, what are you as a fan coming to the game with? Because a lot of people talk about the tanking. If the Jets lose, they could have the 4th overall pick. If they win, they could drop all the way to 12. So a lot of people are looking at that at the Christmas time. And then some people are looking at Garrett Wilson stats and stuff like that. Like the young guys just doing something with some of these games. What say you?
You have to look at some things that you can't really measure.
Okay.
And I'm talking about how engaged and locked in the team looks. Like if this comes across as a group that's completely quit, and it's apparent that they've given up on the year with 3 weeks left of the season, and I think that's an indictment of the coaching staff. And now you have to analyze, what it is that you're running out there as far as your operations with your general manager and your head coach. Now, just to go back to something we had gone, I don't want to say back and forth on Twitter, but we had mentioned to each other on Twitter because you brought up the vote of confidence Aaron Rodgers gave.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up to you on the show
and,
today.
He says like he believes, and I'm paraphrasing, he believes in the skies. And
very emphatic.
We don't need to rebuild, we need to reload. So the reason why I'm not buying too much into that is because I think it's actually less about Saleh and Douglas and more about Nathaniel Hackett. And we've talked about this before. Rodgers handpicked his offensive coordinator. Like we can dress it the way we want to. Hackett was brought in here to get Rodgers to come. So if you are Woody Johnson, and this is, you're kind of a victim of this, you have to allow this to play out, because last we saw Hackett and Aaron, albeit now it's going to be 3 years ago when next season starts, he was an MVP, and it was a second leg of back-to-back MVP. So there's no way you're going to, at age 40, if you're Aaron, sign up for learning a new offense. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So to me, like, it doesn't really register as a vote of confidence in Saleh. He may like Saleh and Douglas, but it's more about if you bang Saleh and you get rid of Douglas, there's no way you retain the offensive coordinator. Like that math doesn't work. So that's what I see that more as. Like him going to bat to keep his guy because he knows that a new regime is going to wipe away the offensive coordinator that he badly wants here.
So I guess let me put it bluntly here. Do you believe there's a chance that Woody still hits the big red button in the middle of his office on any level of this?
I don't think so. But I would imagine that, like I said, if you watch this team the next 3 weeks and they've completely lost it, they've got zero respect for their head coach.
Sure.
It's just like a dumpster fire beyond repair, one that just, necessitates change happening. Then I don't see how you can have that happen, which is why there are two things. So you asked me, all right, what are you watching for the rest of the season? So that's one of the things.
Okay.
And I apologize. My son is here. It's pretty excited.
That's okay. Yeah. He seems really fired up about this. I can respect that. Yeah.
He's in the holiday spirit. Two things that to me needs to happen so that we don't embarrass ourselves as an organization if we're the Jets.
Yeah.
Play yourself out of the quarterback sweepstakes. Like I understand tanking, and look, I'm
Oh, I
I'm all
see.
for maximizing the draft capital because like
Mm-hmm.
the season's a wash and you have so many holes. You got to play yourself out of the quarterback rank, the quarterback part of the draft
Yeah.
because I just think it's a bad look. Like the team should draft a quarterback, right? That they should, but you can't because you got to be all in on Aaron Rodgers.
Of
So
course.
the
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
way you dress that up, and it's like our hands are tied, is you play yourself out of
Interesting.
the quarterback sweepstakes, so that there's not one to take, and you're forced to go offensive line. Like no one's
Mm-hmm.
gonna rip you for that. Let's just say what's the highest they can end up in the draft? Do you have that?
Currently, it appears to be realistically 4. That
Okay,
looks like the highest. There's a
so
chance for 3, but all things considered, realism wise, it's probably 4.
so even at 4, you could get a quarterback. And
Sure. Yeah,
now
it's
you're
possible.
like,
Yeah.
oh man, so we just took a tackle knowing we should have drafted a quarterback, and fans had just spinning. Next season becomes a disaster. We're now doing revisionist history on what this draft should have been. So I think that's just a complete mess. Whereas if you're later, like, 6, 7, 8 even, don't go to 12. That's a mess. But 6, 7, 8 even, you're not really in the sweepstakes for one of the upper echelon quarterbacks that everyone's raving about. You take your tackle, you rebuild, and I think that's like the best case scenario for how we don't all, as an organization, look foolish going forward.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to get into that for the vote of confidence. Here's something we only briefly mentioned on the show. I wanted to do a longer video, but the holidays got away from us. So Ty, me and you can talk about it. There's some whispers in the streets, Mister Ty Butler. Ooh, Mike Tomlin. I'm not sure we
Ooh,
like him over there in Pittsburgh land. And Albert Breer joined Rich Eisen this week, and he said, it's not likely. I want to make that clear, but that a mutual parting of ways somehow happens between Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, and that big fish reaches the open market either straight up or, as some people have speculated, potential of trade.
be a
How
trade, yeah.
interested would you be in Mike Tomlin?
Oh, 1,000% interested. And when I saw Steelers fans on social media destroying him, I'm
Yeah.
like, man, y'all got to be kidding me. But the problem is, I was looking at it through the lens of a Jets fan. If you're a Steelers
Okay.
fan, look, Tomlin's still one of the best coaches in the NFL. Don't get it twisted. This guy's never had a losing season,
Nope.
and he's been, let's be honest, decapitated by his quarterback situation.
Of
And I know
course he has.
Big
Yeah.
Ben wants to take shots. Big Roethlisberger a couple weeks ago.
What a
Like
dick.
the audacity of you. Look at how you looked in your last couple seasons. Like you're part of the reason why they weren't. Like, everyone's tired. When's the last time they won a playoff game? Big Ben, you stay shut. You stay quiet over there with how you looked in your last couple seasons holding this organization hostage. No one wants to hear from you. But I do understand the Steelers fan going, man, like we're in the business of winning championships. We're not the Patriots, right? Like we're not, those Niners dynasty or the Cowboys dynasty. But we are a team that does pride itself on winning championships. And it's been a while since we were a contender. Even in that year where they started, 12-0, 11-0, no one
Uh,
really bought into
that
them.
wasn't real. Yeah,
Yeah, it
right.
was kind of fugazi, right? So we need to get back to that. And I can understand the Steeler fan being frustrated. So if you are someone rooting for that team and you don't know, you just feel like a change of voice is needed. They've had 3 head coaches in 60 years. I can understand that. So I changed my stance on it. If he becomes available, though, the Jets need to be all in on him. I don't think
So
it's
how do
going
you
to happen.
operate that? I am
I don't think it's
interested.
going to happen. I see.
Yeah.
That's the
But
thing.
what if it does though? Like whether free agent or trade wins, and you're Woody Johnson, and you catch a drift that he's available, but you still have Robert Saleh. How do you potentially dip your toe in the water to gauge without potential that shit coming out? And then Saleh's like, whoa, 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 you're trying to replace it, and then all hell can break loose. So how do you potentially manage those waters? Because I'm not criticizing, because again, Tomlin is super interesting to me. I mean, he's got
Yeah.
quite a sterling resume, 2 Super Bowl championships, one as a head coach, one as an assistant, been around forever. He's just proven. He's a proven commodity, unlike Salah, who had never been a head coach anywhere before. But how would you operate that? That's like an open question. I have no idea what the answer is.
I don't think you. So that's the thing. Like I don't think you can do it because to go back to what we talked about with cleaning house, it would require you can't allow Joe Douglas to stay here if you're bringing in Mike Tomlin. You bring in Mike Tomlin, you are essentially allowing him to have what, a 3, 4, 5 year contract. You can't be
Yeah.
married to Joe Douglas for that long. It's already what, year 4 for Joe Douglas, and he's
Well,
been a
technically, it's
disaster.
year 5. He's about to go into his
Yeah,
last year. He was hired in 2019, the
yeah,
summer of
2019
2019.
after the draft, which again made
Correct,
no
and free
sense.
agency, right?
Yeah, which made no sense. But like you, so now like you're trying to pair a GM with a head coach. You need some stability. So you bring in Tomlin. It means Salah's gone, obviously. You
Yeah.
can't keep Joe Douglas. So like you kind of have to work back. Like I don't know, man, because like you kind of have to work backwards. You bring in Tomlin. You need a GM. Does he get say on who the GM is? Hackett's gone. Like how does that sit with Rodgers? I don't
Although
know,
Tomlin
man.
and picking offensive coordinators, maybe it's not too bad if you hook him up with one. I mean,
Yeah, hook him up with a really good one, right? Like not this guy who's overseeing one of the worst offenses
that's
in
fair.
NFL history. So
Yeah.
I that's messy,
Hmm.
man. That's really
And let
messy.
me ask you this: is there any chance? So here's the thing. So okay, so Rodgers says, "Hey, I want to be here 2, 3 years," and Sal goes, "Ah, he could be here 3, 4, 5. Could be here 1,000 years. He might be here longer than I am." Like so he's saying all these things, and I wonder. So that's all in, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers. He's getting closer to death than birth. So the time is of the essence here for this guy. So it makes sense in theory to retain everything, because if you keep everything status quo, that seems like an easier path to winning. If you start changing shit up, that could make it more complicated, whether it would be Rodgers learning new offense or other pieces around could change that mix. Is there a path to continue to be all in if you change out a head coach or a GM combination, or does that just mess up the whole pie because you bring in those two new people? They're not as all in as Rodgers is. They're thinking about their long-term future. So they've got kind of you have a foot in both ponds. Rodgers only has both feet planted in the same pond. That's why I think things could get complicated. And maybe that's why the easiest thing is just to run it back from a simplicity perspective, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
but simplicity doesn't always mean that it's the best decision, and it's
That's a good
why
point.
when people talk about um, the Aaron Rodgers injury and looking ahead, next year,
Mm-hmm.
it's what makes it so scary because the worst case scenario for this season was supposed to be like they make the playoffs, they win a playoff game, they get bounced, and now we know what we need going forward. We know why
Yes.
we
Yeah.
fell short because like the AFC picture looks a little bit different now, but we expected Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, Lamar,
Sure. Justin Herbert. Yeah. Yeah.
Herbert.
Yeah.
Like we expected like such a gauntlet. Deshaun, like we expected such a
Of
gauntlet,
course.
and it would have made sense that Rodgers in year 1 with the team, they don't exactly get to where they need to be, but now they understand what's needed. They go forward. The issue here is now, like we only saw it for 4 plays, so we don't really know what it looks like. We're banking all of our optimism in a mystery, and just like
Yes.
hard knocks propaganda. Like that's really what it comes down to. Like we saw this mini movie for a month, and now we are excited thinking this team could win a Super Bowl because of like powerful speeches and the mentalist who had a prognostication. But
Oh yeah.
we don't know what it looks like, and so the Jets have a defense that's at some point gonna price itself out. Like you're gonna have to start paying
Oh
these
yeah.
guys. Next year they don't have a ton of free agents. Well, coming into this offseason, they don't have a ton
Yeah.
of free agents. But
Huff's a big one.
Huff's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
one. I was just gonna mention Huff. That's a big one. You're gonna have to take care of him. And then
Mm-hmm.
going forward, there are gonna be some decisions you got to make on this defense, which is why it's like you're still in all in mode. Like you can't be rebuild / all in. Like that doesn't make sense, which is why the whole drafting a
Exactly.
quarterback, to go back to what we were talking about, drafting a quarterback doesn't make sense. You're drafting someone in the first round who best case scenario is not going to play a single snap all year for a team that desperately needs pieces on offense. Like that just the math doesn't work. Now if Rodgers were 30, then yeah, but he's 40. So every pick you got to hit on, and now you're trusting a GM who hasn't really hit on some of these picks. So I get your point about not bringing in and changing course. You have to run it back because you're
Right.
just a victim of your own circumstances.
Exactly. But that is a good point. I hadn't heard anyone say the positivity of winning is to remove yourself from the potential of even taking the quarterback or the hindsight 2020 of not
Yeah.
having taken a quarterback that you could have taken. So yeah, that is a hidden benefit here. So
It's gonna
let's
be
end it. Yeah,
it's
go
gonna
ahead.
be hanging over you.
Yeah,
It's gonna be,
exactly.
and they
Right.
are
They'd
going
be
to
like,
get destroyed.
yeah, look what you did with 40-year-old who would turn 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers in what will be 2024. And then that decision of, oh boy. And then obviously Zach Wilson's getting traded this offseason and no other quarterbacks under contract beyond that. So then, oh boy. Oh, yeah. That
Because it's
could
gonna
go
be like
south
you
quick.
should have drafted a quarterback. You should
Yeah.
have cleaned house because this was the perfect chance to do it. You should have drafted a quarterback. You had
Wasted
an
another
opportunity,
year of the cheap control, right? The Sauce, the Garrett, all those guys that in theory you could have done. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but the reason why I keep using the word messy is because that's the best way to describe it. The defense is ready to win now, and I don't
Mhm.
think I've ever seen something like this before, where the defense is like if you just separated them by just teams, right? So like winning in all phases of the game. Just put the
Mhm.
defense in its own category. It's up there as far as like a contender, right? Like the
Oh,
defense is
sure. Yeah.
clearly a
Mm-hmm.
contender, but the offense is one of the worst we've ever seen. So you now need to capitalize on this window of what you have on that championship defense. So it does make sense to be all in. But the offense is so bad. Like that offense is begging for a rebuild. The defense is begging for a championship. So it's like the rubber's kind of like meeting the road here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for certain.
And
So
now
let's get.
you need to add 3 starters on your offensive line. Like that's insane.
Yeah. I'd say 3, and that seems it seems hard to add 1 or 2 in a single off season. To get 3, where the hell's 3 coming from? But that's I guess what Joe Douglas gets paid the big bucks for as a former offensive lineman himself. The pressure's on. The pressure's on, especially with Aaron Rodgers there. So okay, Jets Commanders, Christmas Eve, Trevor Siemian, Sam Howell, yeah, baby. So what's your prediction for this? And also, what do you want to happen?
Man. So as much as we bashed Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
the one thing that he did have that I don't even know if he asked for it, it just kind of came to him was checkbox interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, he's interesting, right? Like for
Yeah, sure.
whatever reason is number 2 overall pick, benched a couple of times, super athletic. He kept you watching. He was interested. You didn't want to miss Zach Wilson's start. Like as bad as it sounds crazy. I've
It's
never
like a
even
car
thought about this
crash. You just
before.
have to watch. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
even as bad as he was, you didn't want to miss it because he was interesting. Like there was
Yeah.
also a chance he was gonna do what he did against Houston, right? Or he was gonna
Exactly.
have
Mhm.
some magic, like the Chiefs game. Like we saw glimpses, we saw flashes enough to keep you intrigued.
So you're telling me
Trevor
you're not getting
Siemian,
that from Trevor Siemian?
yeah, it's like I don't know if I can say this. It's like like you're not getting a boner from looking at this person. Like there's some people you look at and it's like, all right, whoop, there we go. This one, it's like,
Yeah, a lot of missionary
yeah,
happening here. A lot of
it's
missionary. Yeah.
it's not doing anything for me. It's like you as you're doing it, you're thinking of somebody else.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Spectacular.
Yeah, oh, I'm just picturing these throws being made by someone else.
Oh,
But
boy.
yeah, it's
By the way,
look,
real quick on that, I was listening to the Can't Wait podcast. I didn't know it was this bad because Trevor Siemian obviously has not gotten a chance to start a game this season, but he's appeared in 2. And Zach Rosenblatt said he is the most off-target passer in the NFL with a minimum of like 25 attempts. He has like a 30% off-target rate of like throwing it nowhere within his receivers' range that they have zero chance to catch a football. I'm like,
well,
how? How is that even possible?
well, we saw in the 2 picks he threw last week, where it was just like
Well, yeah.
it was like punching on 3rd down. It's just like, yep, we're not going to do
Get ahead of the
anything.
game.
Yeah,
Smart.
let's just
Way to go,
get our
Simeon.
defense back on the. Maybe it's smart because we're like our defense has a better chance of scoring than our offense. So let's get the defense back on the field. I don't know. What am I rooting for? I go into every game rooting for them to win. So it's
course.
hard for me to like, not have that be something that I desire. But at this point, it's just you start to watch players, right? Like Jermaine Johnson's been a
Exactly,
beast.
right.
He's been
Yeah.
a beast, and I'm so happy for him because here locally in New York, and I give Bart Scott credit because he was on the radio. He was the only person I heard on the radio when everyone's talking about Kayvon. or what the second year looks like for him. No one mentioned Jermaine Johnson, and Kayvon's been awesome, but Jermaine Johnson has
Oh
been
yeah.
equally as good, if not better. So you're watching to see what he does. Garrett, of course, as you mentioned, get your numbers, bro. At this point, can Alan Lazard not look like a disaster? Like he can't block, he can't do anything, and he's got the audacity after the game to be talking about out scheme. Yeah, we got when we got out schemed when we
Out
signed
efforted.
when we
What a
when we
dick.
signed you. That's when we got out schemed. Like everyone's doing their scheming in the off season. We signed you. That was the out scheming. So no one wants to hear from you, Alan. And then
Wow. Thanks,
Sauce,
Dad.
I guess. Can Sauce get a pick? I like this. This is
Oh,
where
that'd
we
be
are in the
nice.
season.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is where we are in the season. DJ had a bad game last week. Let's see who
Oof,
rebounded.
roasted. Oh,
Yeah, he
boy.
got cooked.
Yeah. It
Sauce, by
happens
the
to
way.
the best of us.
Sauce,
Yeah.
by the way, had him a lot, but DJ
Yeah.
got cooked.
Yeah, they don't shout out those
Quincy.
corners. Got a lot of
Quincy
flack for that.
Williams,
Ooh,
still
Quincy
watching
could
him?
be an All-Pro. Yeah, shout out to Quincy. Shout out to
Shout out to
Q.
Quinnen.
Quinnen's been good too. He doesn't have the sacks, I know, but he's been dominant. He's been kicking ass.
He's been dominant all year, but the last couple of weeks he's finally getting he's finally corralled 2 sacks in the last 3 weeks. So good for him. But he's been he's getting double teamed. What can you do there?
Yeah.
This will be a learning season for him. Because he's one of the best in football at his position. But yeah, you just kind of watch individual players and then hope the team doesn't quit on the head coach. Because if that happens, then we're having a completely different conversation next week.
That's for certain.
Washington
It kind of looked
did
like
nothing.
at parts during that Dolphins game.
Washington coming off a bye last week was embarrassed. If they somehow find a way to put it all together against this team
at home, your final home game of the year, oh boy,
it's not good.
Could be an issue.
And then, hey, Cleveland on Thursday night.
Joe Flacco. Hey, Joe. Oof, that could be bad too. That could be bad. Former Jets legend Joe Flacco.
Wait, can I ask you something real quick before?
Go ahead.
We get out of here. So, what are you rooting for week 18?
Oh man, I think what I need to know is the exact, which I know you can't provide me because no one can, but the exact scenario. Okay, Jets beat Patriots. Where are Patriots? Where are Jets?
They've got the first pick if you beat them.
Oh God. And oh boy. You end the streak because this is going to be Bill Belichick's last game. What could turn his guts more than his final loss as the Patriots head coaches to the Jets, this team he friggin' hates. So yeah, you beat the Patriots, and okay, they get the number 1 pick. People screw up number 1 picks all the time. There's Jamarcus Russells, there's Purple Drank, there's all this other stuff. Like, hey man, you just beat their ass and say, Belichick, see you, pal. Because here's the thing: when Tom Brady left, right? And the Jets they didn't obviously end the streak while Tom Brady was here. It's not or if Bill Belichick left and Joe blows the head coach next year, we end the streak. It's not going to have the same sizzle. It'll be like, thank God it's over, but it's not going to have the same juice. Like Bill Belichick's the last one's left, and we're just like, all right, old man, SpongeBob style. How many times you're going to have to teach you this lesson, old man, and just beat the crap out of him? So you know what? It gave me some thought. It's an interesting question. I'm sure one we'll ask as we get a little closer too. But you beat his ass. You win that game, and then you say, you know what, the draft picks will be the draft picks. But it's hard. It's hard with that exact scenario because they could. I mean, now the Panthers are within 1 pick, and they would win the winning percentage. Oh boy.
Well, because think about think about what. So we're in 2023. So let's just assume, and I know we got to get out of here, but let's just assume this next quarterback is their next quarterback for the next decade. So that takes us to 2033. So that you now go. Like essentially, give or take, 3+ decades of football, completely responsible for the ushering in of their quarterback situation.
Exactly.
Where you knocked out Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah.
And
Mo
now
Lewis.
you beat Mo Lewis knocks out Drew Bledsoe. And now you beat them to get them the number 1 pick. They've got Caleb Williams, so you now got to face for the next
Jesus. Pick. Wow. And 10 years is on the low end, right? Because Tom Brady played 20, so Caleb as a number 1 pick, if we're as quarterbacks are playing nowadays, could be 15 years. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So, I mean, there you have it.
Well, thank you for that lovely thought. Happy holidays. God bless to you and your family. That's wow. What a guy. What a guy.
Happy holidays, bro.
Thanks, Ty. Enjoy the time with your family, man. I always appreciate you carving it out here. And congrats, man. That's an awesome opportunity. Well earned, well deserved on ESPN 98.7 out there in New York, baby. You deserve it. Make us proud over here. Make us proud.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. And I see all the big things you and the man child are doing. I saw the video y'all posted.
Yeah, gave him some crap. That's what's happening because I'm winning the fantasy championship. That's going to happen here.
Tell him I said hello, by the way, man.
Will do. I'll let him know because he's not in the playoffs, so it'll be hard for him to hear you. But I will translate the message for him. I'll make sure it gets there. Good temper, pal. I appreciate that, brother.
All right, thanks, bro. Later, man.
All right, thanks everybody. Happy holidays, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for a game day preview. Woo! Christmas Eve, Jets Commanders.